G'day, ladies and gents, and welcome to April Fools. Before we begin today's video, I want you to have a look at this. Gaijin and their... Oh my god. It's fucking toilet paper. I love it. This is available with basically anything that you purchase off the store. I'm going to leave a couple of content creators links so you can get a discount on whatever you want. You can buy 150 golden eagles for $1. You can get that decal, and you can get a content creator decal for only the price of 150 golden eagles. I would highly recommend it. I'll leave as many as I can remember in the description. And if you know any other content creators that I've missed, please leave it in the comments, and I'll try to add to it. Now, this particular event is remarkable, actually. You know what? It is pretty interesting. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. But first, I would definitely like to say this is pretty fun. It's pretty derpy. There's heaps of dumb shit going on. You're just in space, for starters. I don't know. War Thunder has never been to space as such, but it does feel quite nice. It definitely feels like a couple of other space games that I played. I'm sure most of this content is practically ripped off Star Conflict, which is the Gaijin space game. So I don't really mind that. I think it's fun for a little bit of April Fools. It's also interesting because April Fools is always a time for Gaijin to test things. So what could they possibly be testing? Well, I'd like you to have a look at the top of the screen. Have a look at the game mode we're playing. It is a 6v6 or 5v5, I'm not quite sure, deathmatch. It's just a team deathmatch. And in War Thunder, we've only had one particular event that was a team deathmatch. And that was on the Poland map, and you just go around in a tank shooting people. And sure, it was pretty fun. But could this potentially come to Ground RB? A lot of people have always wanted certain things to, come to the game. They want a lot more new game modes. That's a massive one for the War Thunder community. A lot of people say that domination and conquest and battle are really, really stale. And, there's some reason in that. I'm not really, I don't really follow that. For me, the maps and the vehicles are what makes the game mode interesting, because you have all these different vehicles and you have all these different maps. When each map and each vehicle is good and well balanced, which is, ideal situation, doesn't always happen, you don't really need a really interesting game mode. But in this case, we have a bit of both. We have something new, something fresh. Most of the vehicles are fairly well balanced against each other in this case, and a lot of the content is just fun. And it's not just fun because it's new, but it's something interesting. Each of these little classes has a unique, perhaps, weapon system. Each of these, classes are particularly good at something. And I think that in itself is kind of interesting. For example, the assault class is your general all-round thing. The support class, which is my personal favorite because it one-shots anything, is the sort of sniper type. And I suppose, I don't know, I don't really get the point of that. I haven't done enough sort of thinking to sort of propose an idea what this could be perhaps testing. I really do like the close combat, or the whatever it's called, class. I think that's a lot of fun as well. Definitely, if you're looking at it, give it a try. But the one thing for me that sticks out is the way that these vehicles appear. It's the appearance of the vehicles that really stands out to me. They're circular. You're in a little capsule, and you have two guns side by side. Does this not remind you of the ball turret on the base of the B-17? Something tells me that Gaijin is starting to work a solution for multiplayer bombers. Now, I would love to see this, not in RB, but in Sim. I think it would be it would be so much fun. The way that these things handle, and the way that you sort of engage in combat, feels really all over the place. And this would kind of make sense if you're operating a turret in a bomber that's making maneuvers. It really does if you have a little bit of a think about it. Maybe I'm reaching, but always, maybe this event is just for a bit of fun and a couple of lols, and I would be 100% cool with that. What I am suggesting, though, is that there is a high possibility that Gaijin could be testing multi-crew bombers, basically. This has been something that War Thunder community in general has wanted for a very, very long time. Like, I'm talking since 2014 and earlier, referencing obviously the IL-2 games, and Gaijin actually did make an IL-2 game, if I'm not mistaken, which I don't remember playing at all. Now, I want you to have a look on screen. Motion control systems are broken, and then I get taken out, obviously. But that in itself, for me, it reminds me, or it makes me think, what are the two parts of a ball turret or a gun turret on a bomber? You've got the guns themselves and the ammunition, which is well modeled. You've also got a particularly interesting sort of like rotational sort of thing going on, I suppose. And then finally you have a damage model. You have, I suppose, what you could call armored glass, if you will. That, I guess the armored glass would represent, or the armor panel in front would represent you in a bomber cockpit, perhaps, or sorry, in a bomber turret where there's a screen of glass in front of you. And finally, you have the motion controls. You have the gimbals and the gears and the, like horizontal and vertical turret drive, essentially. For me, that's where the really interesting thing starts. Another thing that could potentially be in the works here, from what I can see, is multi-crew helicopters. For me, that's really interesting. Or multi-crew planes, where you have perhaps, in the F4 Phantom, you have a weapons operator or a weapon sort of, I'm not quite sure what it's called, but basically someone who controls the radar and who works on the weapons, which is different to the pilot, which for me, that is really, really interesting in itself. Having multiple crew vehicles in War Thunder obviously is not good for RB, because RB is way too fast-paced for that sort of stuff, and you only get one life. But in Sim EC, I would play that. I would 100% play that. Imagine you and your mate in a multi-crew bomber, screw it, a Stuka, or, some dumb low-tier thing. The PO2, perhaps. Perhaps you and your mate in the PO2, going for those low-level bombing runs, calling out targets, think about that, or like an 8-man or 9-man crew of or maybe not a 9. What is it? The B-17 has a 10-man crew, so maybe, I suppose that's 2 pilots, radio operator, navigator, bombardier, and then the rest all gunners. Imagine all of those in gunner slots, all of those being your mates, and you going around and being an absolute muppet in a B-17. Calling out targets. Think about that, like in the movies. That would be so good. I would absolutely love to see that. The final thing for me that really makes me think is a little thing in the support class, and that is the guided missiles. You see, the way these missiles work is really interesting, and it perks my interest greatly, and you'll see it on screen in a second. But the way you control them is kind of like the way that you controlled the missiles in the submarines. It's very, very similar, except you're using mouse guidance. And it kind of lags behind and sort of follows, but doesn't really. And it's a little bit loose. It's kind of like an ATGM, but this is very, very maneuverable, yet it sort of lags behind your mouse a little bit. And something tells me, just a little birdie in me, just suggests that this could be a test for guided ordnance from aircraft. It kind of makes sense. If you're thinking of, I don't know, I can't remember the names of the missiles now. Basically, all the air-to-ground missiles, like, have a look at that. It didn't quite work, but you can see what I mean by the controls. And I'm just going to sort of sit here with the scout class, or with the support class, sorry, and launch all of these sort of missiles. I'm I don't know. It looks kind of funny to me, and I really, really hope that we do get something interesting like this. Look at that. It works practically like an air-to-ground missile, or like a Hellfire, basically, except you can control it and move it around. Maybe it's like the Mavericks, the Walleyes, other things like that. I'm not quite sure. I don't really know my way around this era of tech. But for me, this is really, really interesting. This could go places. I get another one, and combined, all of these little ideas make for some interesting additions we could have to War Thunder. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking too deep into this, and maybe it's just a bit of fun. And I really don't mind that. I think it's a really good April Fool's event. I think it's good fun, a good little derp, and some interesting stuff that we get to play around with, some interesting concepts. But I really hope some of these concepts make it into the game. How's that snipe, though? And I just noticed, how do you like it, Elon Musk? That's a Russian meme, by the way. I fucking love that. I think that's so funny. But anyway, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed. Take care, happy April Fools, and I'll catch you next time.